My name is Lee Caswell. I'm the Senior Vice President of Product Solutions and Technical Marketing at Nutanix, here for the HIMSS conference.
Yes, here we are. And so Nutanix, tell me a little bit more about what it does in the healthcare space.
Well, Nutanix was an early innovator in helping infrastructure of all kinds support applications of all kinds. And for healthcare providers, what that's meaning increasingly, right, is the ability to go and be competitive with applications. Mm-hmm. This is what we're finding, right? If you look at the number of applications and how do you interact with a payer or a provider, a lot of it's based on applications right now. It's more applications than you had last year, and probably next year you'll have more still. And Nutanix is helping you do that faster, seamlessly, and basically with enterprise resiliency. Yeah,
absolutely. How do you go about creating that clarity to those different stakeholders that need that, technology infrastructure? Because to be everything for everything can be a little bit vague and kind of out there. So where do you kind of hone in and deliver that value?
Well, a lot of healthcare providers got started with Nutanix because of VDI or end user computing. These were secure desktops, right, that were basically being provided where you could have, whether it was in a provider element, nurses and doctors with different capabilities, right? Different applications. And what you found, right, was it was very complicated to go and build that using traditional infrastructure. Storage, compute, hypervisors. I mean, it's really complicated, right? We basically simplified this where it's server-based like every modern cloud, right? So simple servers, simple scaling. And it basically meant anyone who had a basic rudimentary understanding of x86 servers and Ethernet could go and build infrastructure at very large scale for very complicated environments.
Yeah, right. And I would imagine with building that infrastructure and whilst, them meaning that it's accessible in more locations, that you've also got to keep those security aspects in mind as well. How do you go about ensuring security is front of mind in the stuff that you do?
Yeah, so if you start thinking about security and how fast you can patch, for example, for a security bug. Let's say there's a security problem, right?
Yeah.
If you've got independent storage, compute, hypervisor, switch, SAN systems, right? You have to patch each one of those independently and then manage and monitor the interaction of those very complicated systems. Well, in a Nutanix environment, you have a one-click upgrade across all of those elements. All of those are contained within server elements. We call those nodes in a cluster. And that cluster right now gets upgraded at one time. And so the ability to basically get back to a security protected state is actually a lot faster for customers. That's number one. Second one is, we've introduced like embedded ransomware protection for our files.
Right.
And so what that means is, using what just started off as file analytics, we can monitor the access patterns, look for ones that are suspicious, and notify you, and you have, again, that one-click upgrade to get back into a protected state.
Yeah.
That's real value for customers, right, where it's really stressful to be under duress in ransomware, for example. So these are things that we can offer customers.
And I'm thinking too about like how these conversations about ensuring security and that responsibility that organizations have, they're kind of conversations you have right up through to a board level, right? So even through, from an executive point of view, that's super important. But then it's like that's so closely tied to technology that's used in hospitals. And I think that's just the world that we live in now, where quite a long time ago, you kind of like the technology piece, you leave to the tech team to work out with the vendor and it kind of get a thumbs up and that's cool and it's working. So that's great. These days, like, am I right in thinking that there's a lot more visibility and interest right up through to C-suite about how these things work?
To say every healthcare provider or payer is a technology company today.
Yeah.
We're watching, even look at the reporting structures, right? Somebody who's the CIO is reporting to the CEO. They used to report into the CFO. Remember those days, right? Right? And so, but not anymore, right? Now it's actually an idea, right, that the technology, and what you're finding is the way you create competitive advantage for any company, but particularly in healthcare, is through the applications you can develop. And those applications, right, the speed at which you develop new applications. And this, just look at your phone, right? The applications you have from healthcare providers this year versus last year, right? You have more already. You'll have more next year. And so what we're finding, right, is that application, that's the way you interact, even more than brick and mortar or with a particular physician, for example, right, or with a payer. And so the ability to interact through applications is becoming competitive currency and really driving, who's going to win, right, as you start looking at consolidation.
Yeah, no, so true. And, as you speak about the rate of change in technology, I think about what's to come, and it wouldn't be a healthcare conference if we did not talk about generative AI.
Oh, please,
bring intelligence. So tell me a little bit more how you're looking at AI in your space.
Yeah, so, generative AI has everybody's interest. Why? because of the speed and the accessibility. If you start thinking about how fast you can do things, right now, there's certain responsibility that has to come with that, right, around what do the results look like, right? But as you start thinking about speed, right, one of the things that we offer now is generative AI means taking GPU-enabled systems. It's exactly the same way you manage our typical systems, right, that are running analytics or databases or VDI, for example. But now you can take a generative AI approach. And so we've launched something called GPT in a Box.
Okay.
Concept is we'll help you self-certify or certify the GPUs in clusters. That gives you the hardware capabilities. But then we've got this ecosystem of providers that are AI software applications. It could be an LLM from the public cloud. It could be a new application for, let's say, intelligent claims processing, or it could be something for doing intelligent video analysis. And we'll help you build that stack and put it in place, and you monitor it just like you would any other application that we have. So day 2 operations, right? What we're finding is this. Developers, right, Gen AI, they don't want to be worried about the infrastructure. So we take that out of the mix for them. They don't have to worry about that. They can basically manage, provide all the resiliency, day 2 operations. We'll provide that for them, right? And you can get back to work on the Gen AI piece, which is the new exciting part.
Absolutely, and let them deliver value where they can have that differentiation. Well, that's really exciting to look into the future. Anything else that we can look forward to seeing from Nutanix over the next 6, 12, 24?
I think there's some other areas where you, as healthcare providers, may not want to become experts. Things like containers or Kubernetes, right? And on the other hand, within the Nutanix architecture, we'll give you the same operations that people have with today's like traditional VMs, offer those into these new container-based applications. That's important because AI applications particularly are being developed at speed, which means you want to take away OS dependencies. You want to be able to deploy them anywhere. So we're taking that out so you can now take the same operating model, the same data services across files, blocks, objects, VMs, containers, on-prem, into the public cloud. It's a great story for simplifying deployment of applications over time.